when we really understand each other's customs, stories, rituals, we have a stronger faith in humanity. The opportunity for me is to be able to express how important it is to transform ignorance to a way of understanding. Podcasts allow us to really hear and feel another world. We can meet across these different and cultural divides, and we can start to understand and learn one another. Teachers are very overworked.
Mm-hmm.
And the workload, the preparation time, the dealing with the parents and families and marking, it's just like everyone is exhausted. We all need to understand things like kindness, respect, honesty, integrity. So stories which show us this.
Hi, good afternoon, Sita, and thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us and tell us more about the work that you do. I absolutely love it. I'm so invested in, helping children become better leaders of tomorrow, better citizens, better community members. And this conversation is super important for me, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation with you. But before that, I would love to ask my signature question. What does the word bloom mean to you in your personal and professional life?
Ansa, what a wonderful question to open any conversation with. So to me, bloom is about growth. It's about growing, about becoming the best that you can be. When we think of a flower, the flower blooms. I am a follower of the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, and he wrote a beautiful book of meditations called The Blooming of a Lotus. And when we as individuals really grow and come into ourselves, that is when we bloom. And for me, that is the case, whether it's in my personal life, my spiritual life, my professional life. In the context of my professional life, one of the things I really love is I really enjoy watching others bloom and having the opportunity to support others in blooming themselves. So I work as a storyteller, and I can see this both working with children, with young people, with families, with teachers, and even with prisoners in prison. So it's a wonderful way, actually, to see the world grow. And for me, that's what bloom does.
This is so wonderful and so deep. Thank you. Now, my next question is for our audience to give them an idea what they will take away from this conversation. I would love for you to, give an overview for our audience. What will they take from this conversation, and how this will change their life and their children's life?
So I want to talk to you today about the work that I do, particularly with children and young people, and a project that I run called Stories for Schools. And Stories for Schools is an Aladdin's cave of stories. It's a digital library, a video library that I've been growing. It's over 100 at the moment, and it's growing. And all of the stories have very strong teaching elements to them. And they are stories that come from around the world. They're told by storytellers from around the world. And they're a way for us to see the commonalities between ourselves. We live in a world which is strangely divisive, and where, we all know the number of wars and things that are currently taking place, and where we sit on different sides of the political spectrum. For me, when we do this, it comes from a place, a lack of knowledge, and a place of ignorance. And my work is all about giving people the chance to better themselves so that they can overcome this place of ignorance. Because when we really understand each other's customs, stories, rituals. We have a stronger faith in humanity, and we can understand one another better. And when we understand one another better, we can live in a stronger world which supports everyone. And this does not mean that we don't have the opportunity to grow and to be the best, and to to be wealthy in a variety of different ways. Not at all. It just means that we have a real understanding about not just other people, but we also have a depth of understanding about ourselves. So the opportunity for me is to be able to express how important it is to transform ignorance to a way of understanding. And I hope in this conversation that our listeners will be able to take away different ways in which they might be able to see the world differently, and learn a little bit about the Stories for Schools platform, and how perhaps if they use it with their children, whether as a parent or in schools, they can also support the growth of their children and young people.
This is beautiful, and I'm so looking forward to getting to know more how to support your platform and how to spread the good in the world that's much needed. How did you come up with the idea?
So I started life as a storyteller. So my first job when I came out of university was I did drama at university, and my first job was to be a storyteller. There was a job in the kind of Actors newspaper. They were advertising for storytellers, and I thought, oh, I can do that. And I went along, and I got the job, and so I started touring as a storyteller. And I'd loved stories ever since I was a child. I'm the daughter of a librarian, and my mother read to me every evening and told me stories, and I loved listening to stories. And I loved listening to my stories even when I was a teenager, and I'd want my mum to read to me. In fact, it got to the point my mum was a little concerned about whether or not I could read. And it wasn't the fact that I couldn't read. I could read perfectly well. It's just that I loved listening to stories. So in fact, nowadays, actually, I do a lot of listening to audiobooks because I love having a story in my ear. There is something very special about when someone talks to you in your ear in the same way as podcasts do. And I'm a great consumer of podcasts, and podcasts allow us to really hear and feel another world. And although it might seem as though they're just audio, actually they're also very visual, because they can paint all kinds of pictures, and we can enjoy them from wherever we are and whatever we're doing in the world. So I've always loved stories. And when I came up to live in the Yorkshire Dales nearly 20 years ago, I was thinking, what shall I do? And I moved to this very small place. It's tiny. Settle is absolutely tiny. It has a population size of 2,400. Everybody knows everybody else, and I mean it, And particularly if, like me, I'm dual heritage. My father is South Indian, my mother is English, and there are not many Indians here. There are not many people of color here, And I can remember my dad went into the one of the local shops, and they went, "Oh, are you Sita's dad?" It's like everybody knows everybody else. Anyway, I came here to this little cutie little place, and was doing a bit of kind of consultancy work, and then thinking, what am I going to do with my life? And I wanted to go back to storytelling because I'd done some work as, consultant and things. And although it makes a lot of money, it's not very nourishing for the soul. And when we do things that nourish our soul, we are enriched beyond measure. And so I thought, well, the first thing I can do is I'm going to set up a storytelling festival, and then I can perform at the festival. and then maybe I'm going to go out and be a jobbing storyteller. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that was at the time, a number of the shops were closing down. And I thought, I don't want to live in a dead town. And I've made my move here. I'm intending to spend the rest of my life here. And I want this to be a vibrant place. So if it's going to be a vibrant place, it means, we need the vibrancy both as a community, as a culture, and economically. We can't avoid the fact that at the end of the day, everybody here has to also pay their bills. And shops were closing down. I thought, well, what can I do about it? And I'm a very much somebody who kind of gets on and does things. I see something and there's a problem needs to be solved, I'll go and get on with it, And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'm going to set up a festival so that I can draw people to the town, which can actually be of economic benefit. So that's what I first started with. And in fact, we, pre-COVID, we used to run a festival annually. And we would bring people to the town. It boosted the town's economy, not huge amounts like, some of the biggest festivals in the world, like the Edinburgh Festival or things. But, it still was very helpful to all the local shops and things. I really enjoyed doing that. And as part of this process, obviously, I worked as well in the local schools. And this is a very wide area. This is an area where there are more sheep than people. As I say, a very small community. When I first started out, I remember taking a Sierra Leonean storyteller into a local school, and a child went up to him and said, "Were you born like that?" Because she had never seen a black man in her life before. And I just thought, this work is really important. It's really important that we can meet across these different and cultural divides, and we can start to understand and learn one another. And I saw these kinds of examples more than once. So I've always had this passion that if we're going to make a change, the change has to be with our young people.
Yes.
I'm in the older stages of my life. I'm over 60. I am, I'm at the point where I'm looking at what is it that I'm going to leave behind. I hope I'm going to live for many more years, and I hope, but even so, my mum's nearly 100, so hopefully I'll have a long time to go. But you don't know. We don't know what life has in store. And when you see that there is something that's important that needs doing, you need to get on with it and do it. And then there was an incident as well, where a young person was very badly assaulted here by another local person, and these two young people, and it depressed me, and I was in tears. I was really upset. I can remember I'm sitting in this room from where I'm talking to you now, and just sobbing. How is it that in a small community where everybody knows everybody else, why are we causing pain? We need to understand one another. So the combination of a number of these kind of incidents made me want to look at how we could do something that brought more stories for schools. So, as ever, ideas and things evolve over a period of time until we evolved this platform as well, Stories for Schools. And I can also see that certainly in the UK, and my understanding is it's in the US as well, is that teachers are very overworked, and the workload, the preparation time, the dealing with the parents and families, the marking, it's just like everyone is exhausted. So what can we do to be able to give people the resources, which means that they can get on with the job that they do really well, which is the teaching, but they don't have to go and do the research and do all of this, the planning stuff, because it's all done for them. And what would happen is if we did this, and in this process, I also was working with some really senior teachers. So senior teachers who have looked at the material, in fact, even the pilot schools, have all said the resources are brilliant. The kids love them. And you've obviously got people who know about teaching and teachers working with you because you have got what we really need, what we are looking for. It's not about trying to sell things to people, but about giving people the opportunity at an affordable price to be able to have this growing resource, and one that can spread greater joy and understanding. And so what I began to research as well in my head is looking at the different types of stories that we can have. So we have storytellers that we're recording from different parts of the world, stories from different parts of the world, and they all touch on all the things that we need to know, but they are aligned in particular to at this point, to the UK curriculum, but we'll move into other curriculums later on. But there are principles of things that are the same. You know, we all need to have social emotional well-being. We all need to understand things like kindness, respect, honesty, integrity. So stories which show us this. And so that's how I came about creating this platform.
What an holistic approach, Sita, I must say. Keeping in mind, the societal aspect of it, how this should help, and how humans should be living in harmony in a society, and that starts with understanding each other and respecting each other, regardless of their color of the skin or the cultural background where they come from. We are all humans, and I love this because it comes from a spiritual place as well. And as I understand, we human beings are spiritual beings. We are in this body, in flesh, but our reality is that we are spiritual beings. And as long as our spiritual needs are being met, and we are living on a conscious level in an awareness state, that's where we make this world heaven. And I commend your work and appreciate your approach, and how you've been so thoughtful about creating a resource to help our next generation, but also the teachers, who are the pioneers of our society, in any society. And whatever progress we have made so far, it's because of those teachers, who have been working tirelessly throughout. So thank you so much. First of all, I have been a teacher. I am a teacher. I love to call myself a teacher. And I see how much value this brings and how this will change the world if people use this resource. Teachers and schools, they use this resource. And especially it's very interesting when you try to teach humans through storytelling, because as far as I know, throughout centuries, and thousands of years, where we didn't have the pen or the paper, to write down those stories to pass to the next generations, we have passed on the knowledge through storytelling, through folklores, through our music, and that's all a form of storytelling.
Yes.
That's how we have preserved the knowledge over time. So what a beautiful way of combining all of that and passing that on to our next generation. So how is the response? How are teachers receiving it? If you can give me an example of,
Yeah, so at the moment we've just been through a pilot, and so now we are making some changes to the site. We're uploading loads more content. Last week I filmed another 20 stories. So we are really uploading enormous quantities of content at the moment. And the teachers basically have all said that they find that the storytelling is really arresting, and the children love it, and the children are engaged. They're not being lectured to. They are hearing the stories, and being able to understand things by watching and hearing stories. So let me give you a little example.
Please.
So a story that's coming to mind, which is really about the importance of truth and story. Sometimes when we talk about stories, people say, "Oh, well, it's a story. It's a made up. It's a lie."
Mm.
You know, these it's fiction. It's not important. Well, a very long time ago, there was truth, and truth was very strong and very beautiful. But every time that truth went to somebody's house, they weren't too keen on him. He he sparked kind of anger. People didn't want to hear what truth had to say. And one day, his truth was lying in the gutter and feeling very lonely. And Story walked past, and Story said, "You know, what are you doing there?" And Story said, and Truth said, "Just nobody wants me. No, what can I do?" Story said, "Look, come with me." And Story took Truth home and washed and cleaned him. And he said, "I've got a really big, beautiful, big cloak." And Truth and Story wore this beautiful cloak. And Truth hid inside the cloak. And whenever, anywhere, anyone went, and Story went, Story took Truth with her. And because truth was within the story, people could hear. So, you know, this is a very old traditional tale.
Mm.
And, you know, this tells us the importance of stories. It tells us why it is that when we listen to a story, when we hear a story, we can hear things that we perhaps find more difficult to hear in other contexts. And we forget this sometimes. But when there's a story, you know, we can cope with it.
Yes.
So, and that's what this platform does. The platform offers many different stories. It also offers stories when used as story prompts for lessons in schools about, you know, even things like the weather, where there's the wind and the rain, and so the words are there that are all used, so you can see how these words are used, but it's in the context of a story. So if you're given a load of information, it's very difficult to retain this. We know that, and there's been plenty of research to show that we can remember things. They're 22 times more likely to remember something if it's in a story.
Mm-hmm.
We remember the story.
Yes.
And we know the story. When you look around and see the challenges that we're all facing in the world, actually the things that, and there are different ways we can get stories. We get stories in pictures, all kinds of ways. It's the story that we remember. So we don't necessarily know what is right or wrong or whatever, but we remember the story. So the skill that you can gain as well by honing your skills to be able to tell a story is really important. So it's not just that this is, so at the moment with the platform, it's just these mostly wisdom tales and traditional tales, and then some tales that we've written and stories that we've written. And because we're also working with people with loads of different communities, so for instance, we commissioned a story about the story of Eid. It's been written actually by a teacher, and so then that's going to get filmed and it'll be performed by you know, a Muslim storyteller. And because it's been written by somebody, a teacher who is also Muslim and has an understanding of the faith and has an understanding of how Eid is practiced, we know that everything is going to be correct. And sometimes I might have written stories, so we do, you know, stories from across the spectrum. So I was also developing stories to do with things like pride and sexuality and these kinds of things, which are really hard for teachers to teach in school, and they've got to teach everything. That's really, really hard. And how do you explain things in a holistic way that is age appropriate.
Yes.
When you're talking about things around whether someone's gay or whatever. So I've taken traditional tales and turned them into ways where you can start to see them in these different ways. But then I also check the tales, and I check them with friends of mine who are gay and say, well, what do you think? And they'll go, yeah, I like that bit, but no, you can't say that. It needs to be like this. And you go, okay, fine. And then it's checked by teachers. And it's so actually what you end up with is something that is holistic. It is something that is authentic. It is something that has had the voices of the communities that are being represented. So when I'm doing a Hindu story, a Hindu will check it. My husband's family are all Christians, so even I mean, we all know the story of like Easter and Christmas, but even then, the Bible stories that I've been filming, I checked with my sister-in-law, because she works for the church. She checked everything, and then she made some suggestions of some other things and that what's important for her from the so we have all of these perspectives there. So this means that what you've got is something that is actually it's been properly checked. It's not just made up nonsense. It takes into account the feelings, the experience, the understanding, and the heritage of people from different backgrounds, no matter their faith, no matter their cultural background, no matter their, where they come from in the world, but it honors them in this process.
This is so deep, and so I love how it has this wisdom included in the whole process, that we are mostly, because this is of age and information, and we are being bombarded by this all kind of information these days from every direction, and we are somehow, I feel personally, losing on the wisdom part of our humanity. We are not as deep, or as the next generation is growing up, they are lost in some sense. So offering them such a platform where you have taken the time and brought in the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience, and the perspectives from traditional point of view, from religious point of view, because we want to include all of that. We want to address our society on a holistic level. We don't want to exclude any one person or any segment of the society. This is absolutely impressive and terrific job, Sita, that you are doing, and you continue to do that, and wish you really all the best, and all your team, for doing such a tremendous work. Can you give me another example that was so beautiful? The story that you told me about the truth and the story, going together and being able to, reveal the truth or tell the truth to the society who's otherwise not willing to, listen to. And that's so true, because every time you are trying to, say something and do somebody in their face, people might not like it. But if you bring a story and try to tell them, through a story, they would get the message without being offended. So can you share another story from another perspective?
Absolutely. So this is a story that we've got, which is actually told in Zimbabwe and in different parts of Africa and also in the West Indies, and it's about a blind man and his sister and a hunter. And the blind man lives with his sister, and the sister falls in love with a hunter, and he's very handsome. And they want to get married, and the hunter is so proud. His wife is so beautiful. But the hunter says to his wife, what is the point? Why do you have to have your brother here? Because he's blind, he's useless. What's the point? She says, no. He might be blind, but he is very, very wise. And besides, I love my brother. He has nowhere else to live, and I have promised my parents I will look after him. So the hunter kind of puts up with this. And the hunter goes out every day, and he goes into the forest to hunt. And he comes back, he brings meat, and they eat. And every day, the blind man says to the hunter, let me come with you, I can help. And the hunter says, no, 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 you are blind. You can't do this. You just stay here. You look after yourself here. You can't see. So how will you help with hunting?
Right.
One day the hunter comes back and he's killed this gazelle, and they have this fantastic stew, and afterwards he's licking his lips, and he's very pleased. He looks at his wife. He's very happy, and I don't know, something kind of melted in his heart, and he turns to the blind man and he says, you know what? Tomorrow you can come with me. You come with me hunting. And the blind man goes, oh, that's great. I'll be ready. And in the morning, the blind man was up and showered and ready. And the hunter came, and the hunter took his hand to lead him into the forest. And they walked in the forest, and they walked into the center of the forest. And as they were walking there, suddenly the blind man stopped the hunter and he said, wait, because there is a lion. And it's okay. It's eaten its kill and it's resting, so we'll be all right. And they turned the corner, and sure enough, there was a lion. And the hunter couldn't understand it. How is this possible?
Yeah.
Said the blind man, that is because I see with my ears. Okay. And he continued walking and went further. And then suddenly he said, stop. And the hunter said, why? He said, there is a she-elephant, and with her babies, we've got to be very careful. The hunter stopped. He said, where? And they turned the corner, and sure enough, there was the elephant down by the water. The hunter was confused. How do you know this? Said the blind man, that is because I see with my ears. And they continued walking, and they got right to the center of the forest. And the hunter said to the blind man, look, I'll show you how to make a trap. And he made a trap in the center of the forest. And with these, to capture birds, you see. And he showed the hunter how to make a trap, and they went back home. Following day, the blind man was up early. And the hunter took his hand and said, come, I'll show you in the forest. And the blind man said, no, I can do it. And he walked, and he never took a wrong path. He didn't bump into anything. He never broke anything, didn't trip on any twigs, nothing. He just knew exactly where to go right the way to the center of the forest where there were the two traps for the birds. And he saw the birds. Well, the hunter saw the birds, and he said to the blind man, you sit down over here. And the hunter went to the traps, and he saw in the blind man's trap was a beautiful bird, a bird whose plumage was gold, crimson, and green. And in his trap was a small brown bird. And he said, this fellow, what can he do? He can't see, right? He's blind. Right. So therefore, I'll give him the small brown bird. So he took the small brown bird, he gave it to the blind man, and the blind man was holding the bird, and they were walking back to their home. And suddenly the hunter stopped, and he turned to the blind man. He said, you're so clever, you're so wise. How come there is so much greed, hatred, and delusion in the world? And the blind man paused, and he said, that is because the world is full of people like you. People who take things that don't belong to them. And the hunter was overcome with remorse, and he took the beautiful bird and he put it in the hands of the blind man. He took the brown bird back from the blind man, and the two of them continued walking in the forest. And then the hunter stopped again, and he said, you're so wise. How come there is love and generosity and kindness in the world? And the blind man smiled, and he said, that is because the world is full of people like you. People who learn from their mistakes. And they continued walking. And when they got home, and whenever anybody used to come to visit the blind man. The hunter would put his arm around his brother-in-law and say, he is very wise because he sees with his ears and he hears with his heart.
Phenomenal.
So you can see in a story like that, there is so much for us to learn.
Yes.
There is so much for us to learn, to understand, so that we can move towards a more understanding world, we create these videos, and the videos all have illustrations, and they have sequencing sheets, and there's more and more additional school lessons as well that are also being uploaded, and we cross all areas around social emotional learning, as well as also awareness days. So, World Book Day and Black History Month and World Oceans Day and all these kinds of things that have to be taught in schools. And also for home learners, because there are lots of home learners.
Right.
And we are, so we also cover, we're in the process of covering all the major faiths. And more, and also things like remembrance, Remembrance Day, these kind of things, they're really important. One of the things I'm working on at the moment actually is looking at how do we tell the story of remembrance for very young children, from 3 to 5 year olds, so that they can understand the importance of these things, but done in a way that is beautiful and is age appropriate, and where a child will be able to engage with these sometimes complex and difficult concepts.
This is an excellent way. My gosh, I was so lost when you were telling the story. I did not want to even blink my eye.
Good, because I love telling stories, as you can tell. So I'm doing lots of stories like this, so we just that's where the program is going. And then I'm developing another program which is being tested by as well. We have an evaluation, and it's also being peer reviewed by Sheffield Hallam University, which is looking at using story, mindfulness, and creative exercises to address these complex and difficult issues that we have to address in life. And we can already show that in 6 one-hour sessions that children are there's a significant increase in well-being, kindness, social interaction, like 53-63%, which actually in 6 one-hour sessions is a lot. And over that period of time, we teach children to be quiet, to be able to meditate, even when they are in complex environments. And we're in the process of finalizing the digital delivery of that program, and we hope to roll that one out next year. But maybe I can come back and talk to you about that next year.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about, I know it's not there yet, but how are you trying to incorporate meditation for young kids? Because that's super important. There's so much stress and anxiety in younger generation. So how are you trying to deliver that?
So I have been meditating myself, and I'm studied mindfulness for about 30 years. And I've been very fortunate to have studied with some of the world's greatest meditation teachers, many in person as well. So I'm very lucky in that respect. So I have devised some simple ways of teaching, simplifying it. Which is being done in a storyful way, and then some very kind of simple guided meditations, which we will also have on the platform. But we're not just doing that, we're also going to do simple prayers, because we also appreciate that people from different faiths and backgrounds need different types of prayerful and spiritual practice.
Yeah.
We are not trying to replicate, someone who is a devout whatever, which we're not, but it's just that it's a way of bringing awareness to some of the main, so within the Christian context, like the Lord's Prayer, which everybody knows, these kind of simple prayers, a Gayatri mantra for Hindus, etc. So simple things like that, and then some very simple meditations, so that people can just learn to start to stop and to listen and to be aware of their breath, and to feel that they can kind of come into this reality of being in the here and now, as opposed to being lost, which many people, not just the younger generation, are.
I agree.
So now we launch the program on the 26th of March. And there'll be a school's CPD event, a continuing professional development event, on the 20th of March. And people will be able to find out things from our website, and I'll send you all the details as well at storiesforschools.com, where you will be able to see the program. And you can also download a free example story and session from that. I think there's one there about respect, a different story. I think it's a Nasruddin story, I think, is the one that's there. So those you can get a sense, you can actually view the site. You don't have access to it, but you can actually see what there is, and there's constantly more and more. Literally every day we're loading more and more content at the moment. So in time there'll be thousands, but at the moment we're in the hundreds. So I'm hoping that it's something that people will be able to use as an inspiration for their teaching, and also for home learning. There's no reason why parents can't engage with this program. We do have a home learning subscription as well, and so it means that people, like families and parents, can also enjoy the joy of this.
This is excellent. And as you were telling the details of the platform and the importance of storytelling, I'm thinking it's not just that the children will learn through the stories, but they also learn a different skill, which is communication. Because once they learn the story, they want to retell that story. And in retelling that story, they build interpersonal relationship, interpersonal communication skill, and public speaking as well, which is lacking these days, because we are all so focused on consuming, and we are not practicing as much speaking. And that would be a wonderful way for your children, viewers, to engage your children in the first learning the stories through Sita's wonderful platform, storiesforschool.com. Please do check it out and subscribe, for yourself, I would say, and especially if you have children in your family, and encourage, if you are sending your children to school, have that conversation and introduce this platform to your kids' school as well, so more children can benefit from this and learn in a more holistic way. This is a wonderful platform, and I was so amazed when Sita first told me about this. I couldn't wait to record this conversation and dive deep into this and learn more, and I'm already amazed by 2 stories that you told me. Imagine hundreds and then eventually thousands of stories that all you guys can access from this beautiful platform. And I wish you all the very best for your March event, and I would love to bring you back, Sita, to know more about how it's going, and for you to tell more stories.
Yeah, definitely. I'd really love to do that. It's been so wonderful talking to you. And I hope very, very much to engage with your listeners again. So
that would be my pleasure one more time. And we will continue this journey because I myself are so invested in growing over time through learning, and the learning should never stop. Doesn't matter where we are in our uh, age or this life journey. We must continue. And also, I'm a big proponent of sharing and giving back to the society, as you are doing, Sita. That you accumulated the wealth of wisdom and knowledge over time, and you decided to make it your legacy, to give back to the community, in this wonderful way. We all should be following Sita's example, and that's my humble effort to, when I created this platform, that was the purpose behind it, to share, to facilitate wisdom and knowledge. So I hope I'm somewhat successful in this. And thank you so much again, Sita, for taking the time to have this conversation with us and share your wisdom, your knowledge, and those beautiful, beautiful, heartwarming stories. So thank you, viewers, for staying with us until the very last moment of this conversation. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, Bloom with Ansa, please do subscribe and give us thumbs up if you like this video, and press the bell icon so all the future notifications can get to you. I would leave you all in peace with my motto: chase your dreams and live with passion. I will see you in the next episode.